Hello, role-playing people, and in this episode we're taking a look at the Malefactor's lore of the Forge, the ability to understand the intended function of a tool, to repair it, to enhance its functionality, to activate it from a distance, to reshape materials, to enchant objects, imbuing them with the lores of the other houses, and finally to bind a mortal or a fallen soul to suitable vessels, creating either demonic relics or reliquaries. It's frightening, outright frightening, just how destructive this Visage of the Malefactors can be, especially when compared to the other Visages that came before the war. Those of the Paths are expert logisticians and makers of ways, while those of the Earth bear the resilience and patience of stone. Both of these Visages assisting Malefactors in the acts of creation. The Visage of the Forge, however, appeared out of the necessity to assist the war, to arm the rebel mortals and their fallen comrades, and to maximize the usefulness of all available tools, defensive or offensive. Before the rebellion, the Celestial Architects didn't need tools, and even the implements that were perceived as such, the Slayer's scythes for instance, were simply an extension of their own beings, not separate pieces. The very first standalone tool appeared during the Endless Night when Nemer, the Iron Crafter, the shaper of ore, gave Adam a metal rod to use as a lever and move heavy stone with which he made a shelter. The Malefactors also helped Slayers build the underworld, hollowing out the substance of the spirit realm. Nudriel helped forge Charon's scythe, Siklos, and the soulfire flame lamps of the ferrymen, which were called Haven's Lights at that time. The greatest betrayal to the Alabaster Legion's Haven project also came from a Malefactor, Schatenkoji, the Ghostsmith, a former pupil of Nemer. While Slayers also anchored mortal souls to objects and to the Haven itself, they did so without causing them pain, without harming the soul in any way. Schatenkoji's hideous experiments turned those poor human souls into fuel or materials that could be used in his devices. We know for a fact the original Soul Forge was his creation, and it was designed not only to reshape a wraith's corpus by melting it over soulfire crystals, but also to collect souls. In light of this, the Nudri of Wraith the Oblivion lore, who was rescued from the labyrinth, is probably a servant of Schatenkoji. This Nudri taught wraiths the secrets of soul forging, a horrifying process which converts a wraith's corpus into soul steel, turning a soul into an object, which was not a technique Nudriel had ever used or would ever teach. So the new Nudri is probably an impersonator, a servant of Schatenkoji, who slew as many as he could in the Alabaster Legion's Bastion of Kasdeja before fleeing to the watchtower Tabaet and joining the Silver Legion. But enough history, let's read some evocations. Enhance Object. This evocation allows a Malefactor to gain an innate understanding of an object and its intended function simply by running her hands over it or working its moving parts. What's more, she can repair damaged objects and make adjustments that cause them to work better than before. System: Role Perception plus Crafts. The difficulty is determined by the relative complexity of the object. A hammer is difficulty 5, while a car is difficulty 8. High-tech objects, such as computers, are difficulty 10. A single success grants the demon an innate understanding of how the object is constructed and the way it works. She can operate it as though she possessed a basic familiarity with its capabilities. If the object is damaged, the demon can repair it with a single success. If she wants to improve the way it works, each success lowers the difficulty needed to use the device. This method of refinement can be done only once to any given item, and it normally lasts for the duration of the scene. The demon can make the effects permanent, if she wishes, by expending a temporary willpower point. Torment. Objects repaired or enhanced by a monstrous demon are tainted by the demon's hatred, infusing them with the tendency to inflict misfortune and death. On a roll of 1 or 2, such cursed items cause a botch when used. Weapons affected by this evocation strike the user or someone close to her when a botch occurs at the storyteller's discretion. Oh boy, here we go. I always knew we'd get to this evocation sooner or later, and the reason I dreaded this whole lore is because there are a lot of additional rules in place which undoubtedly make the crafting process better and which can be found in the player's guide. I won't read those because that's going to take ages. Instead, I'll sum them up. Enhancing an object permanently by spending that point of willpower creates what is known as an enhanced relic. Only objects that have been manufactured can be enhanced as such. You cannot enhance a rock or a chemical substance, and the same goes for items that don't really have mechanical uses. A book, for instance, cannot be enhanced because its use is intellectual, not mechanical, though the storyteller might yet allow restoring an aged manuscript or enhancing its durability. You cannot enhance an item that has a pre-existing relic status, whether enhanced, enchanted, or demonic, which we will explain in a little while, and you also cannot undo or reapply the enhancement after it's been made permanent. If it's made permanent, it's set in stone. The difficulty chart is as follows. Difficulty 5 for small items with little to no moving parts that cannot be used as part of a larger system, such as crowbars, lockpicks, swords, and various tools. Difficulty 6 for larger, simple items, where larger means bigger than a human being. Rowboats, battering rams, ladders, parachutes. Difficulty 7 for small, mechanically complex items that might have a few electronic components. Firearms, locks, small scooters, bombs, AC units, or heaters. Difficulty 8 for large mechanically complex items with a few electronic components, such as motorcycles, refrigerators, cars, or cannons. Difficulty 9 for small electronic devices or items that combine complex electricals with mechanical, such as laptops, cell phones, security cameras, or DVD players. And difficulty 10 for large electronically and mechanically complex devices such as an airplane, an entire computerized manufacturing line, or a huge stack of speakers. It is worth mentioning right off the bat before we get to the forms that these difficulties are modified by the apocalyptic form features, so if a Malefactor of the Forge were to assume the Master Artisan feature, all difficulties of craft rolls would go down by 2. With difficulty out of the way, let's talk other modifiers. The roll is Perception plus Crafts, but if you ravage thralls for Faith, you can add each faith point taken in this way to the evocation dice pool. The maximum you can add in this way is equal to your permanent faith. Malefactors can also extend the evocation duration, working with great care and with attention to all the details. If you extend the evocation to 5 minutes instead of 1 turn, you get +1 to the Perception plus Crafts dice pool. If you extend it to a whole scene, you get +2, which is the maximum you can get by extending the evocation in this manner. Resonance might also come into play, and if the character actually gets down and dirty, physically working on the enhanced relic instead of simply resorting to celestial language and will, the difficulty again goes down by 2. There's nothing like working with your own hands. Alright, now we get to spending successes. You can always reduce or increase difficulty numbers because in the case of a lock, for example, you want the difficulty as high as it can go. You can increase the effect's dice pools for 1 die per success. You can increase the durability of an item, bestowing +1 health level per success. And finally, you can increase any other quantifiable parameter you can think of by 20% per success. The increases cap out when they reach double the original unenhanced item's stats. Let's do an example. The player rolls 5 successes and wants to enhance a sword, which unenhanced is difficulty 6 to use and deals strength +2 lethal damage. The player might invest 2 successes in lowering the difficulty, 2 successes in increasing the damage, and 1 more success into durability. This means, after the evocation is completed, the sword is difficulty 4 to use, it deals strength +4 lethal damage, and is slightly more durable than your average sword. Very nice. Let's also exemplify the 20% rule. If the player has the same 5 successes and wants to enhance a vehicle which can reach speeds of up to 100 miles per hour, let's say, each success can also be converted in increasing that speed, because speed in this case is a quantifiable parameter of the vehicle, although it's not maneuverability or damage. The player invests 2 successes in lowering the drive difficulty, making the vehicle easily maneuverable and super smooth to drive, another 2 successes in increasing the speed, which goes from 100 max to 140 max, and 1 more success in durability, let's say, making the vehicle a bit safer in the case of crashes. If the player doesn't cement the evocation by spending 1 willpower point, it only lasts for 1 scene, at the end of which the item breaks completely. Some items might even explode, so it's best to make these enhancements permanent. However, there's a huge risk to just having these ridiculously powerful items in the hands of mortals or other fallen. So, as the evocation is made permanent, the Malefactor can decide on an activation condition, which means the item won't be at full strength all the time, and the enhancement will manifest in full only when activated. Conditions are plenty and the players can get really creative with them. Maybe an enhanced knife is only activated when it tastes blood, or this bulletproof vest is only activated by spending a temporary point of willpower. Items such as these can also be gifted to other fallen and thralls, and in that case the condition needs to be specified by the one who created the item. If the condition remains unknown, amazing, powerful relics might simply sit on a shelf somewhere because the current user has no idea what to do with them, how to activate them. There are also rules for gifting a relic to a thrall, in which case the Malefactor doesn't need to spend that temporary willpower, but the thrall needs to spend a permanent point of willpower as they receive the gift, activating the enhancement in the process. If they refuse, the item breaks. Enhanced items can also be offered as part of a pack, and the enhancement becomes manifest only after the mortal accepts the pact, and there are also rules for gaining torment as a result of cursed items or the thralls using your relics in torment increasing ways, but I'm going to stop here, otherwise we'll be talking rules till Kingdom Come. So why is this super complicated evocation crazy amounts of fun? Because it allows the character to identify the purpose and function of any item with a touch, because it allows them to repair things that would traditionally be thrown away without a second thought, and because they can have so much cool stuff. We all like stuff. We like cool stuff, useful, durable, effective, tools, what have you. And the Malefactor can offer that in full, not only to itself, but the entire cast of protagonists, NPCs and thralls included. See, they turn lead into gold. They can buy a completely broken car straight out of the salvage yard, repair it, enhance it, and sell it off for a fortune, especially if whatever it is they're fixing has collection value. They can take junk, literal junk, broken computers, broken refrigerators, and what have you, restore them and use them in their own living space. These items will be perfectly functional and, well, because the enhancement lasts forever if willpower is spent, so do the items, unless intentionally broken by a malevolent force. When it comes to antiques and collectibles, good heavens, this house has you covered. You want a perfectly functional, everlasting phonautograph from the mid-19th century or a 1770s Swiss music box? Done. Perfectly functional early firearms? Done. And there might even be objects so old, in such advanced state of degradation, that archaeologists or historians just can't tell what they were and what they were used for. With a single success, the Malefactor can immediately identify such an item and its purpose. With another success, they can repair the item completely. Fantastic. Taking the High Torment approach, they might curse the item they're gifting someone, increasing the difficulty of use to straight up 10 and making it botch on a rolled 1 or 2. Amazing evocation, simply amazing. We can imagine, precisely because of the very permanent nature of these very powerful items, malefactors would be extremely careful with the gifts they bring into the world and who they give them to. Next dot. Activate object. With this evocation, the demon can cause mechanical objects to operate by simple force of will. System. Roll intelligence plus crafts. The difficulty is determined by the complexity of the object. Causing a door to open is difficulty 5, while making a pistol chamber around and fire is 8. This evocation works only on objects that operate by simple mechanical means. Hinges move, levers operate, but hammers don't pick themselves up and start banging away at nails. An elevator button could depress, or a computer's power switch could turn on or off, but the inner workings of the computer's memory aren't affected. The character can affect a single object within a number of yards equal to her faith score. Torment. A machine affected by a monstrous demon's will often breaks or goes wildly out of control, damaging or destroying itself in the process. When making the stamina plus crafts roll to activate the object, also apply the number of successes rolled as damage levels to the object. Alright, we've already mentioned this in an episode addressed to one of our dear listeners. It should be an intelligence plus crafts roll or a stamina plus crafts roll, but it can't really be both at the same time for the same evocation, same activation. But just imagine the gun safety putting itself on, locking your trigger in place just as you're about to take the shot. The safe door opening kindly, inviting you to take anything you want from within, while any kind of alarm that should have went off sits there calmly in silence. Your phone turning off in your own pocket without you having any idea about it. Amazing! As someone who's played a Malefactor and de-escalated at least one combat encounter using this evocation, I can wholeheartedly say it's so empowering and so much fun to use. And the High Torment version is very solid. I mean, successes on the roll are applied directly as damage. No damage dice pool, no additional roll required. So good. For more information on this particular evocation, do check out the dedicated episode I made as a reply to a dear listener. That being said, next dot. Shape object. This evocation allows a malefactor to take matter and work it with ease. A wooden board can be worked into a model ship, a glass window can be worked into a delicate glass crown, or a steel pipe can be shaped by the malefactor's hands into a razor-edged sword. System. Roll dexterity plus crafts. You must gain a number of successes depending on the complexity of the item your character wishes to create. A hammer requires 1 success, while a clock would require 5 or more. These successes can be gained through an extended action, allowing the character to work on an item, set it down, and come back to it hours or even days later. The difficulty to create sophisticated machines, such as internal combustion engines or electrical generators, is 9 and could require 10 or more successes to complete. High-tech items, such as computers, pose a difficulty of 10 and could require as many as 15 or more successes to complete. Items created in this way exist permanently until destroyed. Torment. Objects created by monstrous demons are dangerous and unpredictable, equally capable of inflicting tragedy as they are of functioning as designed. Objects created in this fashion botch on a 1 or 2 when used, and the wielder or someone close to him suffers the consequences. Again, amazing. The examples given in the book are already pertinent, but I think despite the immediate usefulness of the evocation, the fact that you can take a hammer and turn it into a large knife or whatever you need, its true power lies in artistic manifestation and the creation of artistic objects. Malefactors can make extremely intricate works, gorgeous or nightmarish works from so many pieces that won't exhibit fusion or welding points regardless of the material they are made from. And they last until destroyed. Wow. I really like how the rules allow this to be done as an extended action, because a lot of games have pretty rigid crafting rules that seem to demand a lot of planning and attention, while this evocation allows the Malefactor to fit their crafting sessions around other more important story moments with ease. It doesn't create any kind of difficulty pacing-wise, it doesn't necessarily require downtime, or extensive costly preparations, and frankly, because the demon doesn't actually need a workshop with tools and crafting tables, they can work anywhere as long as they have the required materials with them. When the tyrant calls for urgent intervention, the Malefactor can enhance or shape armor and weapons in the back of the van on the very drive to the location, which is so good. It might feel like I'm overpraising this, but as someone who enjoys keeping the story going, keeping things narrative and immersive, I've found nothing more tedious than crafting in other RPGs I've played. I love crafting, I really do, but consulting like 3 different crafting materials tables from different pages, each item with separate and various costs based on the level of quality, each obtained from a different shop requiring I don't even know how many different types of rolls after the materials are acquired. That kind of crafting really slows everything down. And make no mistake, I like simulationist systems for the most part, but beyond a certain level of detail, it just gets tedious, it becomes a chore. Plus, all of the other players also need to slow down to accommodate the crafting process, and when the resulting item has very minor mechanical effects, like +1 armor against kitchen knives or something, yeah, it's just not worth it. It's more of a hassle than it is fun, and the character can't even sell the fruit of their labor because such items usually have very little sale value. But for all its flaws, of which there are many undoubtedly, Demon does crafting so well. It's easy to use, easy to make rulings on the spot, the effects pack a lot of punch, and thus it's empowering for players and fun to use. It makes players feel like their character truly is a living, mobile forge. Amazing. Alright, given that we have many more additional rules to talk about when it comes to the next 2 evocations, I'm going to end the episode here and continue in Lore of the Forge Part 2. It's pretty obvious why the writers couldn't fit all of this detail in the core book, but I'm really glad the additional rules exist in the player's guide. They are so much fun to use. Thank you very much for listening. Take care, have fun, and don't forget to play.